Um, I'm going to delve straight in. How many architects are here in the audience? Good. So we will talk a little bit about architecture and a little bit more about people. Kiran, thank you for having me here. BLF, I think it's even more crowded than last year. Congratulations. Very well organized. I'm going to delve straight in. IIM Bangalore, of course. I guess that quite a few of you have visited the place. Who of you have been at the campus in IIM? That's substantial. Great. Malingam, Reddy, and Mayana were responsible for bringing the amount of trees from 12 to 50,000. Doshi, Mohe, and Medappa created a very interesting and inspiring environment. Yet, in your book, Kiran, you don't judge, you don't create heroes. Could you elaborate a little bit on that?
I'll start with thanking the Bangalore Literature Festival team for allowing us to be a part of this, and thanking Anna for agreeing to be in conversation. I think the book, as it says, within the book in the introduction, we do say this, and it's also on the cover. The book was being brought out as part of the Institute's Golden Jubilee celebrations, and it was, at that time, of course, we thought that it was going to be primarily for the alumni. But the campus being what it is, the campus has always been, for the architectural community, it has been a great learning ground. It has been known across the country, it's been known across the world, so everybody in the architecture world really knows the campus. We could not talk about the architects and only talk about, address it to alumni. It was meant to be a book on architecture, but we tried to focus on what people, that is the faculty, the staff, the alumni, the present students had to say about what the campus had meant to them. And once we decided that that was going to be our focus, we didn't do it like a typical architecture book where you would talk about the person who had been behind the design process. We decided to keep it to what happens after the building is built, and I was kind of a little bit inspired by this book by Stuart Brand, which talks about how buildings learn what happens after they are built. And it therefore seemed very important that while there had been a really wonderful journey up until the campus design was implemented, it was also important for both the architects and the IMB community, both the community that was inside currently, but also the community that was all over the world by now, to know what happens in these spaces and how are they being experienced. And the names that Anna mentioned, the first three names, they are the horticulture team. And most of us who have been in the campus know that there has been a very beautiful integration of nature and architecture. And it has not been just the architecture, it has really definitely been the green and how it has come in. So I think both played a role, and the names are mentioned. Some amount of background is there about the architects, a little bit about the architectural details and so on, but we really wanted it to be about people's experiences.
So can we say that perhaps the hero of the book is the community?
I think so, yeah.
Your key interest is in public space, how communities use space. Sometimes that is by building something that is by growing something. As you live in IIM, reading your book, I think it's also very much about a living experience. Maybe difficult question, but could you have written this book without living on the campus? Or would it have been a different book, let's say the insider-outsider perspective?
I think that the lived experience, as you mentioned, definitely is an added advantage. It's a huge advantage you have. I think in my case, the way I think it impacted the book was that actually having the opportunity to walk through the campus over and over again at different times of the day, what it actually did for me was it made me realize that the campus often looks deserted most of the time. And that was, being an architect, especially knowing that this is a wonderful campus architecturally, with beautiful pergola corridors and courtyards and all the greenery, it was a surprise that it was deserted most of the time. So I think that was the question that hit me hard. Why is it that this beautiful, both the built spaces and the unbuilt spaces were extraordinary? Why was it that the spaces were not seen occupied by students as they would in another campus? And so as a first step, I started to dig that out, that where were the students? Why were they not seen just loitering? And some amount of digging and interviewing got me to realize that there was a whole life that they had on the hostel side. And the main campus, which is the most photographed part, the pergola corridors, etc., architecturally the most acclaimed, that's not where the students were hanging out. The students were hanging out in the hostel courtyards, and the entire hostel part, there are almost, originally what Doshi designed was 14 to 15 hostels, and then over the years, Sanjay Mohe has also built newer hostels, but all of these hostels themselves have courtyards. And so a lot of the student community had their favorite places and spaces there.
Right. And I think IIM also attracted a relatively famous fellow from Mumbai, Mr. Amir Khan. He shot the Three Idiots film there. Could you give us a little bit of an insight of what happened when the Mumbai circus came to IIM? Towers and all kind of things happened, right?
Yeah, I happen to have...
It's described in the book.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I don't know. I'm sure many of you have seen the movie, but the film crew, the actors, and the guys who were shooting the film were all on campus for about 6 months, and this is, of course, out there online. You see a lot of YouTube videos and things, but as an architect, what I was noticing was what were the changes that they were making to this campus that we so loved architecturally, because they were making a few changes. And there were, for example, I remember that they had at the main gate, just outside the main gate, and you would remember this from the film, first of all, it was called Imperial College of Engineering in the movie, and they had this clock tower that was a set, which was made out of thermocol and plywood and all of that. It was just put up for a day, and that came as a bit of a surprise, because for all of us here who are architects, you would know that gate, built in stone, and that lovely concrete arch, with a separate pedestrian entrance, and then the way the compound wall intersects with that gate, all of that, as far as architects are concerned, it's a fantastic gate design. And so you're thinking, I mean, did the film crew really want that clock tower there, and why? So you wonder then that the perception of people about what a university should be. I mean, a clock tower look like it really has to be on your program if you're designing a university campus. So yeah, that was one of the things that was totally fascinating.
Great. I'm glad they removed the clock tower. In your book also, when she gave me the book, I started reading, and after about 6.5 hours I had finished the book. And I kind of was looking at the last pages. Who made these amazing photographs? They're really, really good photographs in the book. And typically when you make a book like this, you hire an Ivan Baan or some kind of architectural photographer kind of things. And then most of the photographs were taken by yourself. Are you a writer, photographer, thinker? Where is this photography passion coming from?
No, I think it was, it was a little bit of a struggle, frankly, the photography. I struggled with that because I was technically not at all up to the mark. But what I also started to realize was that if you had to tell a story in a particular way, you also had to have the photographs, say the same things. And if, for instance, you're telling the story, the stone story. I mean, in the book, there's one of the chapters, the architecture and its implementation, where we talk about how Doshi had actually selected the quarries from where the stone would be brought, and the kind of the kind of rigor which went into the actual construction phase. So on one hand, there was the stone story that was being talked about a little bit. We were talking about, in one of the chapters, which is called Nurturing Nature, we were talking about the pergola and all of that, talking about the silence and the light, which is, some of you might know, there is this book that Louis Kahn wrote on silence and light. And Doshi being, an ardent admirer of Kahn, he had sort of imbibed this into the campus. So now when you're trying to capture all of that, it was very hard to explain it, and it felt like we were just not getting it right. So you kind of struggle and try to capture that. So yeah, it was not very easy, but I would say that there are also photographs by a few alumni sent us photographs. In fact, almost 2 years before the final book happened, we had sent out emails to alumni asking for old photographs. But we were getting these photographs as WhatsApp messages, and the resolution was not so good and all of that. So it was a bit of a struggle.
I'm glad you didn't use those.
Yeah. But there are a few which are very nice. There's one holy photograph which is brilliant, which is by one of the people who lives on campus. So yeah, there are. The campus also has a photographer, and his pictures, a few of his pictures are included. So we do have others, but then again, his pictures were mostly taken when events were happening on campus. They were not so much of the architecture or the light and the pergola that we were looking for. But yeah, we have got a little bit of that as well.
So the book has been, I think, and this is also had the way of, I think, yeah, sure. So it's also using photography not so much as just make a full page of photography, but also details and series of details that have the specific topic. Sometimes about stone, something about space, something about corners. You really celebrate the pergolas, which is beautiful in this pergola setting. And the walls where you're sitting now are very green walls, right? Very good for shading. So that brings me a little bit towards architecture. Doshi, of course, won in 2007 the Global Award for Sustainable Architecture. I'm personally not so much of a fan of the Pritzker Prize. And this thing of that it is the so-called the Nobel Prize of Architecture. It is basically, it's a hotel family from Canada who is very rich and started to kind of give prize to star architects. Thanks to Alejandro Aravena, thank God that changed a little bit, but it's still a very, I would say, traditional choice of what these hotel family wallahs kind of select, if I may say so. 40 years of the campus, looking back, looking at the future. The world has changed. You told me in one of our discussions that we had as a preparation for this session that Biome has done some really good work on water harvesting in the campus. Solid waste management has really changed in IIM since the last, let's say, decades. Carbon footprint thinking is definitely something that is on the agenda. So if IIM is a place where you have the smartest, the most future forward-looking people with a lot of brains and a lot of ambition to be part of the future, what will the new buildings in IIM be? What will they reflect? Is this going to be cutting-edge self-sustainability? Is this going to be truly innovative? Because if you look at, with all due respect, Doshi loved concrete, and because his master, Corbusier, loved concrete, right? And Doshi, you can forgive him. He passed away at 95. He's done amazing things. I'm a great fan of him. And then of course Mohe came, and Mohe was very scared how to build next to Doshi, right? And he explained very candidly at the Bangalore International Center how scared he was. And he kind of wanted, as a, let's say, the Bacha and the master, to see if he could resonate something of that architecture. And he chose exposed concrete to do that. And then, I don't know the work of Medapa very well, but he added, let's say, the white wall plaster, standard plaster wall, which is something that comes from modernism in the 1920s, right? So maybe a challenging question, and maybe you want to talk about it or maybe you don't want to talk about it. Are the new buildings of IIM, because it's in the future, in the coming 10, 15, 20 years, 40 years, is that going to represent a factor of stability, of making a safe choice, a little bit Pritzker Prize thinking, or is it going to be really cutting edge? Are they going to invite, I don't know, Prashant Pole and Manjunath and cutting edge kind of architects and engineers to also live up to that standard of ambition of IIM? Now don't forget that 38% of the problems that we have on this planet are caused by the building industry. Hi, architects.
I think since I don't really represent IIM, but I do sort of relate to the question, and I completely agree with you that, going forward, we need more effort to be put into making our built environments more sustainable. I think that, like I said, I can't really speak for the IMB community and what they might do or might not do, but they are a government institution, and what I do know is that there is a tendering process. There are a certain set of regulations, norms that they are expected to follow. There can, I'm sure, definitely be a push from their side because they are who they are. But I think that maybe there has to be a change at various points in the ecosystem, because right now the landscape within the country for sustainable architecture is not so great, and I think there will have to be efforts from all fronts to ensure that, all fronts, I mean that, people who are in the material vocabulary, which is not in the control of the architects, that we will have to have the government on our side first.
Well, I think, Edgar, we need to talk to IIM management. Because if you want to improve, if you want to change, if you want to show that things can be done in a much better way, I think it's not a good idea to build buildings that look like they could have been done in, let's say, in the 1980s or the 1990s. Right? If you are serious about practicing what you preach, then I think, as a teacher of architecture, as a kind of a researcher, as a practicing architect, that needs to be reflected in the built environment. Anyway, this is my pick. One request to the audience: the book has been reviewed, I think, 3 or 4 times. We need a few more reviews of this book. Spread the word. Shall we open up to the floor, to the audience? Yeah? Any questions? Yeah?
Hello. Yeah, that was an interesting point that you brought up about the future and how we will build 40 years from now, especially places of higher education. China, of course, has learned at its own peril, continuing peril, what it means to give these projects to star architects who might be carbon neutral in their own country but don't care a damn for where they're built outside their country. So I think that is going to be a given for all architects in the future, even if it's a competition or not, that there are certain norms that have to be adhered to as far as sustainability is concerned. It's not each one doing its own experiments. Of course, experimentation is very important, but I think that really is the fundamental issue. And there is more to sustainability than just the choice of materials. I think it's also how you put them all together and what life it sustains within that creation, which actually is perhaps what IIM should look at. One controversial or example might be the MIT. There are architects after architects that have built there, and it is a sort of melange, but it's exciting.
Thank you, Edgar. More questions?
Thank you very much for the wonderful conversation of architecture. So I want to ask about the philosophy behind architecture. It speaks stories, as you said, but more than the material vocabulary, what education philosophy or teaching philosophy does the architecture reflects on teachers as well as students?
Did you mean the architecture of IIM? So I think that at least I can only share what I have learned from it. I think what was, while we said that there was nature coming in, nature has come in very beautifully. I think what Doshi did do very wonderfully is he facilitated that nature coming in. And I think from the early days when the project was first conceptualized, when they had looked at Fatehpur Sikri and looked at how the built and the unbuilt work at Fatehpur Sikri. I think a lot of that was brought into this, contemporary work, and so whether it was the way in which the courtyards and the pergola corridors, the way they sit together, the spatial organization of the master plan, how that works, because it's a master plan that allows for additions to happen in a very interesting way. You can these pergolas and corridors can be added as little physical elements. Yeah, so there is a lot that happened and was put in place then about how nature can be integrated with architecture. So I think that is, for me, the biggest lesson.
We take 5 more questions outside of this session. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I
time's
get
up,
you?
sir.
Thank you so much for attending, and please give an applause to Kiran.